my name's Leighton, and this is going to be creating and launching your DeFi app, lessons from PoolTogether. So I'm going to talk a little bit about PoolTogether, which is the app we launched, but also this is pretty targeted towards people who maybe are working on a DeFi app right now and are going to launch it, or are trying to come up with an idea for a DeFi app. So I actually came up with some alternative titles for this presentation too. The first one was going from knowing 0 people at ETH Denver to speaking at Ethereal in 8 months. So this is actually true, and I think the reason I threw this in here is my first Ethereum event was ETH Denver 8 months ago, and I went by myself. I didn't know anyone, and I felt pretty out of place, and I felt pretty uncomfortable. And so I kind of just wanted to give a shout out to any other people who might be here thinking like, not sure if I belong in this community, or not sure if I should have even come to this conference, and just like welcome you and let you know that you do belong here, and that a lot can change in a short amount of time. The second title was going from being carefree at ETH Denver to stressed out at Ethereal in 8 months. And this is just also my shout out to just kind of the issues of the stress that comes with actually like building any company, but particularly I think things that involve money. And founder mental health is something I care a lot about, and so anytime I have a chance to like speak in front of people, I always try to throw something in about that, just to acknowledge the importance of it, and open up a conversation if anyone wants to talk about it. So, all that aside, you probably are now thinking, what qualifies me to be talking about this right now? So I wanted to give you my quick story about the launch of PoolTogether, which is kind of where I'm getting my credibility from to speak about how to launch apps. So PoolTogether is a app on Ethereum that launched 3 months ago. And as a fun little aside, this is actually my house. I live in this van. And this is actually taken the day we launched PoolTogether. So I was on an Indian reservation in New Mexico and had really bad cell phone service. And so it was a difficult place to be launching an app. But that's sort of some of my personal backstory on it. And so we launched about 3 months ago, and PoolTogether is a no-loss lottery built on Ethereum. So you may be thinking, that sounds too good to be true. How is that possible? The basic concept is people deposit DAI into a pool. The pool earns interest on compound finance, and then once per week, one person randomly wins all of the interest that was accrued on that pool. It's essentially a way of gamifying savings, right? So we call it a no-loss lottery because we're trying to target people who play lotteries and get them not to play lotteries. But really what we're doing is providing an incentive for people to save money by having a chance to win a prize. And underneath this idea of a no-loss lottery is actually, I think, an even more important and more powerful concept, which is one that actually Vitalik touched on this morning, which is this idea of pools, right? So pools are multi-party, fully liquid, no-loss funding mechanisms. And we happen to be using a pool to fund a no-loss lottery. What Vitalik was talking about this morning is the PIP implementation, which is the idea of using a pool to fund no-loss investing, where you're putting your principal in, you can take it out at any time, but the interest is going to a project. I think the other big use case for pools is no-loss donating, so philanthropic use case. And if you're following this, there's a lot of discussion in the community about this. But anyways, that's PoolTogether, and we launched about 3 months ago, and we really had zero kind of credibility in the space. Like I said, I went to ETH Denver 8 months ago and knew no one, and we had a really successful launch. We got covered by basically like all the crypto media in the U.S., CoinDesk, Decrypt, Circle Research, everybody. We had a lot of influential people on Twitter talking about us. I got 700 new followers on Twitter that day. It felt really great. Nick Johnson was actively soliciting people to copy our concept, which felt good too. So anyways, so that's kind of, I wanted to kind of give, we also, this is kind of from a buzz perspective, but also just from a results perspective, when we launched the app, we had really good engagement. This is our V1. We just launched a V2 about 10 days ago. So 654 unique players, which isn't a ton of people, but for an Ethereum application, it's pretty good to get started. So that was kind of that's all kind of building my credibility to talk about why or how to launch your app. And so I wanted to kind of try and extrapolate a couple lessons that I feel like helped make our product and launch successful. And so I'm going to talk about the two things as separate categories, like what helped make our product successful, and then our launch. On the product side, I think there's less I have to talk about here. I wanted to focus on launch. But the two things I'd say that made our product successful is the first is that we had a proven and old idea. So a lot of people have been like, wow, no loss lotteries, that's an amazing idea. You must be so smart. And I'm like, actually, no, I just read about it and thought this would actually work way better on a blockchain. And so if you're in the audience and you're thinking, hey, I want to do something in DeFi, I want to build something, I would say start by looking to the past. Look to proven old ideas that actually are going to function a lot better on a blockchain and run with those. And I think that's a big part of why PoolTogether has been successful. I think the other thing on the idea front is thinking before building. So I spent about 5 months researching the history of insurance, the history of the stock market, like how did all these different financial primitives get invented and popularized before doing anything on product, actually building a product. And so this is maybe somewhat similar to the thing I just said, but I just think that there's a lot of value in looking backwards before going forward. So that's the two things I wanted to say on a product side. If you're thinking about lessons that we learned from launching PoolTogether. The other things I want to touch on are from the actual launching side, and I think there's two categories here. I have how you think about the collateral you have for your launch and the channels that you're distributing that collateral through. And the reason I think this is important is a lot of app developers, I think, just kind of put their product out there and maybe send a tweet about it, and that's the extent of the collateral. There's no how-to manual, there's no video explaining how it works, there's no blog post about the concept. All these things are missing. And so I think what made our launch successful is we actually had all this collateral created at the time we launched. And just to real quickly go through it, what our kind of checklist was, we had an internal talking points guide. This was our most important piece. So it's this was only internal, but it's just one thing that had, this is our mission statement, this is our elevator pitch, which gave us something when we're going to all these different channels and outlets to make sure everything's harmonized. An explainer video, that's obviously was really important and also super cheap and easy to make. I built one in Keynote and then paid $100 for a voiceover, and it looks really good and super professional. So they're actually way easier to build than I think a lot of people think. But that was super helpful for us. Introduction blog posts, how-to blog posts, launch contact list, channel-specific content. So when we launched, we already had our Reddit's post drafted and our product hunt post drafted and all that, and product images. So that's kind of the checklist that we used, and I just wanted to share that here. And then I think the other thing is just channels. How do you distribute the content that you've created for your launch? So the channels we used was individual email. This is actually our most important one, just personally emailing every person we've ever talked to about the app and making sure they know it's launched. Mass email, product hunt. I thought this was interesting for the Ethereum community because I think a lot of times we ignore product hunt, but it was actually the number 2 source of traffic for us. The first one was Twitter, and number 2 was product hunt. And we got a lot of our normies from product hunt. So wanted to throw that out there too. Reddit was a big place for us to get traction as well. The final thing that really helped us get a lot of traction, and this one's optional. Oh, Twitter, sorry. But the final thing is controversy. This is optional. But I made a mistake of not open sourcing our code or even verifying it, which I didn't really understand the significance of when we were launching the app. And so that created a lot of controversy in the Ethereum community, which is why a lot of people were saying oh, let's just copy this and open source it. And so that was not a good decision, but it actually did end up in some ways working to our favor because it ended up creating a really big conversation around the topic. So I don't know if I'd recommend that, or I definitely wouldn't recommend that, but just being truthful in the retrospective, that is something that helped us for building and launching. So this is kind of our, sorry for the poor formatting here. This is just a summary of everything I just went through. So wanted to give the checklist in terms of our lessons from building and launching a DApp. On the product side, the proven and old idea and thinking before launching, and then on the launching side, the collateral that we have and the channels that we distribute it through. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.